What's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with ScoopDuck on 3, coming to you live Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. Game week is finally here. The 2024 college football season gets underway across the country this week, and the Oregon Ducks are set to open things up with we got number 3 Oregon against the Idaho Vandals. I was killing that. Hit a little bump in the road, but we still keep it going. And joining me on today's episode to preview Oregon's Week 1 contest against the Vandals is Andrew Quinn of KREM 2 Sports. Andrew, how we doing, man? Great to see you.
Good to see you, Max. Thanks for having me on again. Really looking forward to getting this college football season started. Obviously, up here we've got Eastern Washington kicking things off tomorrow, but of course, definitely looking forward to this matchup on Saturday.
No doubt about it. And just to fill you guys, the audience, the listeners, the viewers in a little bit, Andrew is a longtime friend of mine. We both went to Gonzaga, and he was with me when I got one of my first jobs in local news, covering the inland Northwest out there in Spokane, Washington at KREM 2. So it's cool to be able to have these connections, get to bring him on a show. He's been on a couple of my shows before, Wazoo previews, but he also covers Idaho. So super stoked to be able to chop it up with you, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it.
All right. So we got our preview for this week's game. And just before we get into that, want to make sure you guys are aware we're running a kickoff sale over at ScoopDuck right now. You can get 50% off of a ScoopDuck annual membership using code KICKOFF2024. That's Kickoff 2024. Get you 50% off, the best in Oregon football and recruiting coverage with myself and Justin Hopkins. So go check that one out. You don't want to miss out because there's no better time. All right, Andrew, starting things off, this was a little bit of a surprise to me. Saturday's meeting will be the 60th all-time meeting between the Ducks and the Vandals. Oregon leads this series history. I was right here. I have my notes right here, and I'm completely butchering it. But they lead it by a lot. I'm going to have to find that tweet. But just kind of give us some early thoughts on the Vandals, because like I told you, I don't know too much about them, and that's why I wanted to bring you on to tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, man, this is a team that's been on the rise the last few years since Jason Eck took things over in 2022. This is year 3 of his regime in Moscow, and he's really done a great job of turning this program around. After the Paul Petrino era, he did a great job of getting into the transfer portal, which was something that, Idaho had never really done before, and really brought in some strong players. Hogan Hatton just made the Lions 53-man roster. He was the long snapper. His brother Hayden was one of the best players in Idaho history, and he's probably going to make the Seahawks practice squad. So they definitely had a lot of talent over the last few years, including the new quarterback just down the road there in Corvallis, Giovanni McCoy, who was the quarterback here for the last 2 years. But sitting right behind him was redshirt sophomore Jack Lane, who now has the keys to the Vandal offense. And so we're all very excited to see how the Lake Oswego native does in his first start as the full-time starter. He has had 2 starts in his career so far, both against Idaho State. And last year, he played just one half of that game against Idaho State and threw 6 touchdown passes. So very exciting stuff in Moscow. This is a team that will compete for an FCS championship. They're ranked 7th in the nation right now in the FCS, but obviously the Ducks are coming into this season with very, very high expectations. So definitely looking forward to just seeing how Idaho stacks up against, arguably a national championship contender this weekend.
Expectations are certainly high for Dan Lanning's Ducks. I was able to find that stat, Andrew, while you were talking there. Oregon leads the series 52-3-4, has won 23 straight against the Vandals, but wanted to stay on your topic, telling us about the Vandals, because a lot of these stories with these other teams, they start with the man behind center, and that is Jack Lane, a former Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Oregon. I saw that you did a little package, a little story on Jack, and I gave that one a retweet over on my timeline. So just get our audience up to speed a little bit. Who do they need? What do they need to know about Jack Lane?
Yeah, Jack was kind of an interesting case. Idaho, when Jason Eck was brought in, he was kind of brought in a little bit late. So basically, all of the recruits for the 2022 season had already signed. And so he and his coaching staff hadn't really gotten a chance to kind of, find their talent and the guys they wanted to bring in. But late on, they actually went down to Lake Oswego and they were recruiting Jack's brother, Dylan, who is a middle linebacker for the Vandals. And so they were down there looking at Dylan, and then offensive coordinator Luke Schleisner and Coach Eck kind of got to look at Jack while he was playing. They're like, man, this guy's pretty good. But the thing is, Idaho had already signed a freshman quarterback in that year's class. So they didn't really have a scholarship available for another quarterback. So they actually worked it out with Jack where he would come with Dylan and actually walk on to the team as a true freshman. But he actually competed for the starting quarterback job as a true freshman against Giovanni McCoy, against CJ Jordan, who's now Portland State, and a couple of other guys. And he performed very well right out of the gate. It's just towards the end of fall camp, he was throwing a pass and he hit his finger on a helmet and broke his finger. So that kind of ended the quarterback competition, which, I mean, we all think Giovanni McCoy was going to win, but Jack certainly performed well. And, they were able to get him in since it was his redshirt year. They obviously have a few different games that they can play and not lose the redshirt. So that he actually played in the Idaho State game at the end of that season and played very well. They won that game. As I said prior, he played last year against Idaho State as well, through 6 first-half touchdown passes. And with Giovanni transferring on to Oregon State, it's now Jack's turn to lead the team. And without a doubt, Max, talking to players, coaches, anyone involved with the Idaho program, they just rave about this kid's work ethic. They say he's in the Kibbe Dome about 98% of the time. If you walk into the Kibbe Dome, you will see Jack Lane every day after practices. You see Jack throwing to his receivers after practice. He just seems like a workaholic. He's, spent the last 2 years learning, and I think he's really ready for this opportunity.
Kibbe Dome. That's what it's called out there in Moscow. I gotta check it out sometime. The Kibbe Dome. Okay. Yeah, it's cool to get a little bit more background on Jack Lane. It sounds like he's got some big playability and is kind of the heart and soul of this Idaho squad heading into this year. To kind of just look a little bit on the other side of things for Oregon, they're going to be tasked with defending Jack Lane. Just to talk a little bit about this Oregon defense and what we're looking for on Saturday. The Ducks obviously enter the season with a tremendous amount of hype and expectations, probably the most since I've been covering this team dating back to 2018, Andrew. And the defense has some really key pieces, whether it's Derek Harmon that came over from Michigan State, Jamari Caldwell from Houston, Jabbar Muhammad from Washington, Brandon Johnson from Duke. Dan Lanning just raided the portal for a lot of top talent, and I think that just shows you how all in this team is going into the 2024 season. Oregon's defense was really solid last year, but I think they weren't where they needed to be in terms of pass coverage. I really liked how they were against the run, stopping the run, and ramping up their pass rush, because that was an area where they fell way short of expectations for me in 2022. So you have all those pieces in place, and then a lot of young stars are on the rise within this Oregon defense. So even though there's all the excitement around the starters, I think more broadly, the excitement for this week's game is to see what those twos look like. Some of the backups, provided that Oregon can put this one away within a reasonable amount of time. So a little bit of a different angle than we're going to be used to throughout the year, but still a really important game, I think, for both teams.
Yeah, definitely. With expectations as high as they are down in Eugene this year, I think all Duck fans would like to see Oregon put Idaho away early and just kind of, put the foot down, see Dylan Gabriel throw a few touchdown passes. So I definitely think that, this is a game where Idaho is just going to go in and play loose. It's a team that really has nothing to lose. They're going in, they're going to get a little bit of a bag from Oregon to come play this game. And, they just want to go in and see kind of where they're at. This is a new offense with Jack under center. They've got a new starting running back in Nate Thomas. So just kind of seeing how some of these new pieces fit. And also, it can't hurt before you go play the Montana States, the Montanas of the world, to go up against a national championship favorite in week 1. So I think it's going to be fun to watch this game, especially early, just to see how both teams look. But I think we're all excited to see this year's version of the Ducks for sure.
And Jason Eck was speaking earlier this week. Andrew, you were kind enough to share the press conference from Monday afternoon with me. He was speaking about the value of playing in a place like Autzen just throughout the year, how starting the season off at a place like Autzen is going to help them when they go to some of these tougher road environments like a Montana State. He said that they've been pumping in crowd noise, working the crowd noise all week out there in Moscow. So I think he has a good perspective on this. He's saying that I'm not going to be on the chopping block regardless of how this game goes this week. And you're just hoping that some of the things you're seeing in practice translate over to the game. And to talk a little bit more about the Ducks here, I really want to see how the linebackers look. I think the linebackers and the secondary are some of the areas I'm really interested in because Oregon has a lot of young talent there. Justin Jacobs and Jeffrey Bossa will be man in the middle of that defense as Oregon's 2 inside linebackers. But what does Devin Jackson look like? He's been saying all offseason that he's the fastest guy on the team and really just has this renewed confidence that I don't think I've personally seen or heard from him, but now we're going to be seeing a lot of him this season in that 2 deep at linebacker. Jerry Mixon's another one to watch. Maybe we see a little bit of Braden Platt, one of multiple All-Americans the Ducks signed at linebacker in the 2024 class. So I was writing earlier today, the Ducks reloaded in the transfer portal, one of the best hauls in the country. And then you combine that with the program's best ever recruiting class. And God, it's just, I can't wait. I cannot wait. I think every snap will be a fun one to watch. This offseason feels like it's been a long one. I don't know about you, Andrew. I know you cover other sports as well, but the season's finally here, and it honestly feels like a relief to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it crept up fast for sure. Last week, Idaho high school football began, and I was like, wow, it got here really fast. But no, I think we're all chomping at the bit to actually see these teams in game action. I think fall camp's gone on way too long now. So these guys are all ready to hit somebody else. And I think we're all really excited. And speaking about, the Oregon defense, Idaho right now, their tight end, Jake Cox, is a first team preseason All Big Sky. So really excited to see if Jack can, get him the ball as well, test those linebackers and safeties that you mentioned there. And of course, I'm really looking forward to seeing Idaho's new number 1 wide receiver, Jordan Dwyer, go up against Jabbar Muhammad and just kind of see how he fares against someone of that caliber. Obviously, we all saw Jabbar last year at UW, and really looking forward to seeing how he fits into this Oregon defense.
You took the next question out of my mouth, Andrew, because I wanted to ask you about some other players to watch on that Idaho offense. I didn't just want to focus on Jack Lane, so I appreciate you filling us in there. And I think that's one of the other things that makes this game fun for everybody is I don't think anyone expects anything too crazy from Idaho, but we're going to see a handful of plays, I bet, on Saturday where you're like, wow, okay, those guys can win some contested catches or some one-on-ones, some reps like that. So Rob's here saying, please, Lord, no injuries on either side. I think that's definitely something that everybody's looking for. Don't want to have any injuries to start out the year. And I guess that's a smaller headline around the Ducks going into this game. They're not expected to have Matthew Bedford, one of their veteran offensive linemen who transferred over from Indiana. He's probably going to be manning down one of those guard spots. So we'll probably see a little bit of Charlie Pickard, and then Iapani Laulaulu might move over to one of the guard spots for the Ducks in this one. No Jaleel Florence or Dave Iuli. So those are some other notes to watch. Maybe we'll see Gary Bryant Jr. available in that one, the wide receiver, according to Dan Lanning on Monday. Before we get any further in today's show, want to give a quick thank you and shout out to one of our sponsors here on the Ducks Dish podcast, and that is Ranchito Grill in Springfield. Not sure what your dinner plans are tonight, but head on over to Ranchito Grill at 1537 Mohawk Boulevard. You got to try their homemade tortillas. They got great food, a great environment, and they will take care of you. Say what's up to my guy, Ruben, and let him know that Max Torres sent you. Thanks so much for being here with us on a Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. Week 1 is on tap, folks. And joining me to preview Oregon's season opener against the Idaho Vandals is Andrew Quinn of Creme 2 Sports. Andrew, let's switch it up a little bit. We were talking earlier about the Idaho offense versus the Oregon defense. Now we're going to get what we need to know about this Idaho defense, and then I'll sprinkle in some Oregon offense there as well. So what's the story with this Idaho defense, and who are some guys we need to know about?
Yeah, this is the question that we're all here really excited to see, because anybody you talk to right now says that Idaho may have the best defensive line in the entire Big Sky. These D-line guys are for real. They've got 2 edge rushers in Keyshawn James Newby and Malachi Williams, who've done a good job of getting to the quarterback over the last 2 years. They've got a big 330-pound nose tackle in the middle named Jakari Larmond, who, is a big space eater. Definitely, is great at, trying to stop the run a little bit. And then they've got another interior defensive lineman named Dallas Afalava, who's just a sophomore but had a tremendous freshman campaign. He's another preseason all-conference guy. So really excited to see the Idaho D-line go up against this vaunted Oregon O-line. We know how much the Ducks love building up a big O-line. So really excited to see that. As for the Idaho cornerbacks, it's pretty much a whole new squad. Last year's 2 starting corners, Marcus Harris is now at Cal, and Ormani Arnold, I believe, went to Texas Tech, I want to say, or Indiana, one of those 2. So now this year they brought in a guy who Duck fans may know about, named KJ Trujillo, who used to play at Colorado. He's bounced around a little bit. Last year was at South Alabama, and now he's at Idaho. So he's bounced around a little bit. They also brought in Corey Thomas out of the transfer portal. So 2 brand new starting corners who, they're a little bit undersized. So I think Oregon could really try and exploit that, hit some jump balls for sure, some balls over the top to really, show off a little bit of a size advantage. But these are guys who have a lot of experience playing college football. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in their first game at Idaho. And then, in the linebacking core, as we mentioned, Jack's brother Dylan Lane, he kind of anchors the middle of the Idaho defense alongside Matthias Bertram, but it looks like Dylan will not play Saturday. He has a hamstring issue. So you're going to see Jason Eck's baby boy, Jackson Eck, will be in there at middle linebacker to start. So, Idaho right now on paper looks to have a good defense. I certainly think they'll pose a little bit of problems for Oregon early on, but I just think Oregon's size, speed, athleticism, really shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then in the backfield, Idaho has 2 long-term starting safeties in Tommy McCormick and Kyron Beecham. Those guys have played a lot of college football. Tommy's a preseason all-conference guy. Kyron went to Oceanside High School in San Diego. Max, I know you've been down there a few times. So
that's where Dutch Bros is.
Yeah, so
Oceanside.
Definitely they've got some talent on the defensive side of the ball, but just think that Oregon's size and athleticism and the speed that the Ducks play with is just going to be really hard for them to contend with.
A good little overview there, Andrew, of a bunch of different positions on that Idaho defense. Let's stay in the trenches for a little bit, because you kind of alluded to the D-line being Idaho's strength heading into this one. And I think Oregon's offensive line, even though they're kind of shuffling some pieces right now, they're expected to be pretty dominant, not only in this game, but in the rest throughout the rest of the year. They've got some continuity on their side with returning bookend tackles, Ajani Cornelius and Josh Connerly Jr. Iapani Pancho Laulaulu comes back after a true freshman. I think he was at All-American honors on 247. So he's a guy that fans are really excited to see. He had looked like the heir apparent to Jackson Powers Johnson at center. He's now with the Raiders after winning the Remington Trophy at Oregon. And then another guy that probably doesn't get talked about enough on this Oregon offensive line is left guard Marcus Harper. He is someone that has played a ton of ball at Oregon, was actually on the team when Alik Terry was a GA for the Ducks under Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal. So I think you're excited to see what the Ducks have in a guy like Charlie Pickard, who is a walk-on and an Oregonian himself from Portland originally, and then maybe some guys like Nishad Strother, who transferred over from East Carolina before last year. He is someone that has battled some injuries at Oregon, but we haven't seen him on the field a whole lot. So I think as far as the offense goes, we're going to be looking to see what the Ducks have from a depth standpoint now that it's kind of being tested early on right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think it's a good opportunity for Dan Lanning to rotate those three interior guys. I know that was a big question in Monday's press conference about, who is going to start. And he said, it doesn't matter who's going to start. It's, seeing how many of these guys can play. So I think it's going to be interesting to see who the Ducks roll out there, especially for you guys that cover them and get to see who they put in at the interior offensive line. But obviously those two massive tackles are definitely on the mind of Coach Eck and his staff of saying, those guys are really darn good. And, it'll be interesting to see what Oregon's rushing attack looks like this year.
I think Oregon's rushing attack is going to be special. Let's move it back a level in the defense, Andrew, and look at the linebackers that you talked about a little bit and just the run game that they're going to have to defend, because Oregon's got a just embarrassment of riches in the backfield under Rashad Samples. That's the case every year with this team, right? Oregon's not going to have any issues recruiting top running backs, but I don't expect to see much of Noah Whittington in this game. He is working his way back after suffering a season-ending injury last year against Colorado. Andrew, my thoughts about Colorado from all of our group chat conversations while Brandon tries to keep defending them, but that's a different conversation for a different day. I'm not expecting to see too much of Noah Whittington, probably a lot of Jordan James and Jay Harris in this one on Saturday. So the run game is going to be a fun component to watch because we know the Ducks are a run-first team. I know Eck said that he might be preparing for more quarterback runs from Dylan Gabriel, but I don't know if I'm necessarily expecting that because we saw Will Stein really manage how much Bo Nix ran last year, and I don't think you want to risk running your quarterback too much.
No, I certainly don't think we're going to see Dylan Gabriel running too much on Saturday. Maybe later on in the season, but really excited to see, Jordan James. I saw him break a few runs last year, looked really good in a few different games now that Bucky Irving has moved on and if, Noah's not going to play. So really excited to see how he does. And on the Idaho side, it's going to be tough for these guys. That Oregon offensive line is scary. These guys are going up against one of the best offensive lines in the nation. And I just hope that, they can, try and limit them as best they can. I think that's going to be kind of the idea for this Idaho defense is bend not break. But, I definitely think Oregon will have their way with what they want to do offensively on Saturday.
Last group we're going to talk about here a little bit, Andrew. You said it's a little bit of a new group for the Vandals at cornerback, or maybe more specifically, just more broadly, in the secondary. Oregon enters the year with what some people are calling the best wide receiver core in college football, which is not something that I'm used to saying or even hearing covering this team, because for as good of a team as Oregon has been for most of my life, Andrew, they haven't been known for their receiver play, and they haven't been known for having super dynamic guys year after year. That changed in a big way last year when Troy Franklin was shattering program records. Tez Johnson, who is back for another year with the Ducks, set the program record for receptions in a season. So he's a guy that comes with a lot of fanfare. And then Evan Stewart comes in from Texas A&M. Just a pretty dumb collection of talent in terms of just the amount that they have, the amount of star power in that room for Junior Adams. So I guess let's just talk about those guys and what we're maybe going to see from the Idaho corners. What's a good day look like for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all excited to see what Tez Johnson can do as the number one guy. Really cool that he went back to school this year and going to try and be that guy for Dillon Gabriel. As far as the Idaho corners are concerned, they actually do have a fair amount of speed, which I know Oregon loves those speedy guys on the outside. So I actually would like to see if the Idaho DBs can, keep up with these Oregon wide receivers. They're all basically track stars out there. So I mentioned they're a little bit undersized. KJ Trujillo is not a huge dude. Corey Thomas is under 6 feet tall. But Idaho also has a corner who's coming back from last year, and Andrew Marshall, who played a lot last year, played very well. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes that next step this year. And they also brought in Abraham Williams, who I don't know if we're going to talk about special teams at all, but if I was to give one guy that Oregon should spotlight with a big O on Saturday, his name is Abraham Williams. He will be returning kicks and punts for Idaho, and he is ultra dangerous. This is a dude you probably want to kick the ball away from, because why would you let one guy hurt you when, you could send your defense out there and try and get some stops against Jack Lane. So definitely spotlight Abraham Williams. This guy has been easily the best kick returner in the Big Sky over the last 2 years. He transferred from Weber State this offseason to Idaho. He plays corner. He's got good size, obviously very fast, but don't know really what his cover skills are like. So I'd really like to see him get in there and get stuck in against some of these Duck receivers. But I think we're all really looking forward to seeing Dillon Gabriel in this Duck offense. How's he going to fare? How has he learned this offense? And what can he kind of show us on Saturday?
What number is Abraham Williams? Who we got to look out
he's
for?
Number 2.
Okay, number 2, right on. I think
easy for you.
I think Lanning had mentioned that they have someone that was at Weber State last year, so that would confirm that for us. We've got a question from Travis here that you might be able to help us with, Andrew. Is the press conference from Eck available to watch?
It is, yeah. You can go on Facebook to the Vandal football page. They post them every Monday. So if you'd like to watch Coach Eck's presser, you can head on over to the book face and check that out.
Bro, where's the Creme coverage? I thought you were gonna plug Creme there. You can't watch it on Creme?
No, we don't do raw pressers
too
much unless it's a really big game. And obviously with Idaho going in to play a college football playoff favorite, we don't know how this one's going to go quite yet. So we'll see.
Fair enough. I got one more question for you, Andrew, and then we'll kind of wrap and give our final thoughts here. Let's tap into your Ohio State fandom. Do you think that Oregon has the best receiver core in the country, or are Brian Hartline and the Buckeyes kind of right there with them?
No, they don't. I think it's Ohio State. I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong, especially, being here on the West Coast. Oregon's always on TV, so I love watching the Ducks, but I think Ohio State has the best receiving core in the nation. Looking forward to seeing what those guys do this year. I definitely think Oregon and Ohio State are going to be, there in the college football playoff. Would love to see a matchup between those two teams. I think that'd be really, really exciting. And I know you'd be excited about it too, Max.
Yeah, I would be super excited. I will be in Eugene for that Oregon versus Ohio State game on October 12th. Covering things for us over at ScoopDuck, a game that Duck fans, mind you, might be feeling like they were robbed of a little while ago back in 2020. I think it was with the pandemic and wildfires. Travis is saying, get Andrew out of here with that terrible take. I thought we'd probably get a little bit of pushback there, but I just thought it was a fun conversation to have. So Andrew, yeah, it's been awesome getting to chat with you, man. Any kind of final remarks here on the Vandals before we get out of here?
Yeah, Idaho the last few years they do have experience playing Power 5 teams. 2 years ago they played Washington State in Cam Ward's first game there, and they lost by a touchdown. Last year they went into Berkeley and played Cal, and we're up 17-0 with 3 minutes to go in the first half. And then Cal finally got things going in the second half. But Idaho's not a team that's going to be afraid. I think Coach Schleisner has a few tricks up his sleeve. I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched Idaho, but this is a team that loves the trick plays. They love to, do a little, chicanerous stuff there on offense. They like to mix it up. There's definitely going to be a few tricks in the bag. This is a team that's going to go for it on fourth down. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to take risks. And, I think it's a good test for Oregon right away, to have a team that's going to go out and push them early on, at least. I think that's a good test. And then, obviously it'll be really exciting to see the ultra talented Ducks kind of show out on Saturday. I'm expecting a lot of fireworks for that sold out crowd in Autzen, but I think especially early on, it might be interesting to see how Idaho handles that situation, with Jack being a Lake Oswego native. He grew up going to games at Autzen Stadium. So I think it's just super exciting. I think Oregon fans can, show him a little bit of love, being an Oregon kid. But just really excited to get the season underway and just see kind of how Idaho stacks up against a team that, everyone is hoping may be there at the very end of the season.
Cannot wait to get things rolling for Oregon this year with the season opener on Saturday. Really excited to see Dylan Gabriel get his first start with the Ducks. Like you mentioned, Jabbar Muhammad has to be another one. I'm super, super excited to see. Crazy journey story with him going from Oklahoma State to Washington, balling out at Washington, and now he's a Duck to wrap up his college career. We're going to have all that action covered for you over at ScoopDuck, so make sure you guys are tapped in with us over there. Andrew, before we get out of here, let people know where they can find you and more of your work, because we got a lot of Pacific Northwest natives that like to tune in, and maybe they'll find their way over to some of your coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. Just head on over to creme.com, check out our sports section. You can catch all our stuff on YouTube throughout the season. We obviously cover not just Idaho, but we also cover Eastern Washington, and we also cover, I don't know if you guys are going to pay attention to the Pac-2 at all this year, but we cover Washington State as well. So if you guys are still, interested at all in the Cougs, come on over and check us out. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Quinn, or follow us on Twitter at Creme2Sports. So Max, I really appreciate you having me on, and we'll see how it goes on Saturday.
Right on. Well, really grateful to get some of your time, Andrew, and to talk some ball with you on my show here. So make sure you guys tap in with Andrew and all the great coverage that he's got going on over there at Creme 2. If you want to find more of me, you can follow me on any social media platform at Torres Sports. Subscribe to the ScoopDuck on 3 YouTube channel, and come and see us at ScoopDuck.com. Take advantage of our 50% off kickoff sale. Get a great discount using promo code kickoff 2024. No better time than right now with the college football season getting underway. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.